the love. But let's talk about Philly, because coming into the year, there was concerns, how much are they going to miss Jason Kelce? Well, they had bad snaps and couldn't execute a tush push. Seems like they miss him.
Yeah.
Is Jalen going to...
They couldn't do the tush push because the field was slippery. What do you guys not understand about that? It was because the field was slippery. They could not get their footing. That is the most obvious thing any person that could watch that game could see. That's why. If anything, they shouldn't have called the tush push. So call out the play calling if you want, but not the actual tush push itself. Just nonsense.
To continue to turn the ball over at an alarming rate? Well, he had 3 and was very fortunate he didn't have 5. So yeah, is the defense going to be a bottom 5 defense in the NFL for the second straight year? It didn't blow me away despite the fact I didn't think Jordan Love was that sharp. I think you are potentially overestimating how good the Packers defense is when evaluating how great the Eagles offense looked. Listen, Saquon was sensational, and we know A.J. Brown is a superstar, and Devontae Smith is as good of a number 2 receiver as anyone has. But I don't trust the coach. I don't trust the defense. And as more and more time goes past since that Super Bowl, I lose more and more faith in the quarterback. So I think Philly is way overvalued. I think, Colin, what you said off at the end there is exactly right. If you watched football from Thursday to last night, it sure feels like the Chiefs and the Niners are here and the rest of the league is here, which maybe makes an argument that Baltimore should be number 3. Because while, Kansas City controlled the game, Baltimore did have a chance to steal it. And I don't know how many people are going to play when Kansas City's locked in and essentially fully healthy, them tougher than Baltimore did. And I know teams will get better and, it's early, but it sure seems like that Kansas City and San Francisco, the 2 Super Bowl teams from last year, through a week, look like clearly the 2 best teams in football.
Okay. Guys, this is actually really funny. We're going to disarm this very, very easily. And I have some stats that I'll read out about the Eagles and how good they looked and why they looked good. And, they obviously had their issues as well. But Nick right here is saying the Packers defense is not that good, essentially. That Colin's overvaluing them, and therefore the offense looked better than it was, right? But yet, Nick has said repeatedly that the Baltimore Ravens defense is not that good, that they lost their defensive coordinator, that there are serious issues on defense. Yet he's not saying that that has any effect. He's consistently said that he doesn't think that the Jets are a good team and that their defense is also overinflated. That he says that he says he doesn't even think that defense is a top 10 defense. He said that but going into this season. And yet the 49ers looked great at them, and he's not using that as a reference point. But for some reason, the Eagles beating the Packers is just not that impressive. Like, what are we talking about? The Packers had the best offense with the best quarterback for those final 10 games. Like, just look at that sample size. So the Eagles had to face that type of level offense, and they held their own. Was it a clean, perfect game? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the defense obviously looked better, obviously more physical, obviously more prepared. The draft picks seemed very comfortable, relatively speaking, of how comfortable you could be early on in week 1. That was a tough situation to be in. Facing the Green Bay Packers is a brutal week 1 opponent. It just is. So what are we talking about? Like, seriously. And he wants to say, like, oh, well, Jalen Hurts could have had 5 turnovers. Then why are you not playing that same game for Dak Prescott? Dak Prescott easily could have had 3 or 4. Even Tom Brady pointed it out. Patrick Mahomes easily could have had 2 turnovers, but he got lucky and it was only 1. So if we're going to play, which I agree with counting turnover-worthy plays like Pro Football Focus does. Like, I play the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. But I don't like when people say, well, we don't want to play the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but we're only going to do the shoulda, woulda, couldas for the team or player that I don't like. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. You have to be consistent. I try my best to be as consistent as I possibly can, and I'm sure I fail sometimes, but I truly try. this is just a shell game to me. It's not fair. You can't just pick and choose when you want to consider the opponent. Like, this is what also Nick did about the Chicago Bears versus the Titans. He said, based on week 1 of that game, it appears that the Bears have an awesome defense. Like, am I crazy? Is Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans a good offense? Like, we're not going to consider how bad that offense is when trying to figure out how good the Bears defense is. We're just going to crown that defense as great. But when it's trying to evaluate the Philadelphia Eagles, we're just going to come here and say, well, the Packers defense is actually not that great. And their offense that didn't really look that sharp. Please make it make sense. Please make it make sense, because I cannot. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Philadelphia Eagles are this best top team and that they're going to win the Super Bowl. Let's go. Because I have no idea. It was week 1. I know it's fun to kind of go through this list, to go through his herd hierarchy. And as I always say, and I guess I'll have to keep saying it, is that I put teams in groups. I don't like to rank teams 1 through 10 or any order like that. But I absolutely put the Eagles in the top tier. I just do. I put them with Detroit, with 49ers, with Kansas City. You would maybe give the Kansas City Chiefs an edge because I do think Andy Reid is just next level. And I think Spags is the next level defensive coordinator. So that alone, I think, gives you a leg up, especially come time playoffs. But I put them in the top tier. The Lions had a brutal matchup against the Rams. That's a brutal week 1 game. The 49ers against the Ravens, also a brutal week 1 game. The Eagles against the Packers, a brutal week 1 game on a slippery field on a Friday night in Brazil. Like, what are we talking about here? Where there was all these distractions where they were saying the Eagles and the Packers can't wear certain colors, and the NFL was telling them that they can't go out and they got to be careful because of crime and this and that. Like, my God, what an uncomfortable situation to be in. Whether it ended up panning out like that or not, that was the story. So I just don't like that we don't explain accurately why a team did good. And then we try to disprove a team that did good because we want to explain it away. It just doesn't make sense. We said our concerns were about Jalen Hurts versus the blitz. But Jalen Hurts was 6 for 8 for 91 yards and a touchdown versus the blitz. I don't think there was any sacks. Pro Football Focus had the Eagles' offensive line number 1. So you want to say that Travis Kelce was this devastating loss. Jason Kelce was a devastating loss. He was a loss, no ifs, ands, or buts. There's not a single Philadelphia Eagles fan who's going to just want to downplay that. But Pro Football Focus still had the Eagles' offensive line number 1 in the NFL. Gave them their, award or whatever PFF does. That's pretty good if you ask me. The tush push was slippery. Saquon Barkley slipped just getting a handoff. People were slipping and sliding on that field all day. How are you not going to acknowledge that that's going to affect the tush push, which is all about digging in. It's all about digging in deep into the dirt and really pushing. Again, I blame the play calling. Because when I saw them go for the tush push, well, first of all, I was like, what are they doing? They shouldn't do this. And then when it didn't really work out and they tried to do it again, I was like, no, the field is too slippery. The players need to tell Kellen Moore, no. We can't do the tush push. It's too slippery. So again, blame the play call. Call that out. That's totally fair game for me. But then he's saying Jalen Hurts is increasingly getting me worried. Jalen Hurts had beautiful passes. He praised Trevor Lawrence for having like a top game, which I didn't necessarily think so. And listen, I'm not a Trevor Lawrence hater. But again, yes, Jalen Hurts absolutely made some bad throws. No ifs, ands, or buts. There is no debating that. He had a couple really, really bad, ugly throws. Tried to do too much. No question. But he also did really, really good things. Virtually all quarterbacks around the NFL had turnovers and had really bad moments. Patrick Mahomes included. Hurts was top 5 in yards, top 8 in yards per attempt, third longest pass play for 67 yards, and top 3 in touchdowns. That seems pretty good to me. Nick also said that Saquon Barkley wasn't going to be good, wasn't going to be an upgrade. And yet Barkley top 5 in rushing, also not even including his total yards, and, touchdown leader. I guess technically under Josh Allen, but that doesn't really count. And the Eagles were had top 5 players in interceptions and sacks and tackles. They had a player in that was top 5 in each of those categories. So it seems like the defense did a lot better, I'd say. So this is just funny. I really don't understand the gripe. It's also, I don't understand. People have said other things like that, saying that Colin is like, anti-Philly, which is clearly not the case, as he has them as number 3. He's obviously super high on Philly. But yeah, I just think it is funny to see people try to explain things away. And again, I'm on the record before you come at me and say, oh, you're just trying to talk up Philly. It's not accurate. It's just not. I don't think Philly played a flawless game. I'm not saying that they're the number 1 team in the NFL. I'm just saying that it's week 1. And I've given reasons and excuses and tried to explain why teams were successful or unsuccessful. If a team was ultra successful and they played a bad team, I addressed that. If a team lost, but they played a really good team, I addressed that as well. It can't be binary. But we have to be consistent when we apply the various logic to something. We can't say that the Chicago Bears defense looked amazing, but not acknowledge that they played an awful offensive team with Will Levis, who most people think is a bust and not a starting quarterback. And then in the same breath say, whoa, tap the brakes on how good Philly's offense looked because Packers defense isn't that good. That does not make sense. It is illogical, does not compute. We have to be consistent. We have to be. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Colin Cowherd putting the Philadelphia Eagles top 3 and Nick Wright obviously disagreeing? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.